All right, so chapter 3 of Signs in the Rearview Mirror. Chapter 3 is kind of an interesting chapter, I think. Actually, I was just sitting here and I was talking to my friend and I was like, oh, why did I agree to do this? I do not want to talk about some of this stuff anymore because it's just no fun kind of reliving it, you know, that sort of thing. But at the same time, I think it's such a good, you know, piece of material for people to see and try to recognize what this kind of abuse looks like. So in a sense, it's good that I'm doing this. It's also making me like so happy that I decided to heal and get away from all of the toxicity in my life. But so chapter 3 is basically, there's a couple parts of this that are a little bit difficult. So in chapter 3, I talk about the day Derek moved out. Derek is the ex-husband in my life. His name really isn't Derek, but I talk about that. And it's interesting because I remember that time when that happened. And I remember in the master bedroom that we had in the closet, it was like, you know, my half and then his half. It was, you could like walk through both. And at one point I went into his half and I decided, this is like over, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to take all this stuff and like move it downstairs or whatever. And oh, I did it. And it was so excruciating, like after. Like even though a relationship is over, even though it's done, even though, you know, you don't want to be together anymore, or you think you don't want to be together anymore, or you need the time away because you may not want to be together anymore, that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. That doesn't mean it's not difficult. When you're with somebody for as long as I was with him, packing his stuff or getting his stuff out was so painful for me. It was the most painful thing. And I remember after that, I called my therapist and I was like, guess what I did? And he's like, oh my God, why would you do that? And I'm like, I didn't think it would be this bad, but it was really bad. It was like, you know, sitting in the closet and all his stuff is gone with that one like hang on, like going back and forth. And it was like painful. It was so painful. So I talk about like more of the separation and him moving out and then me moving out in chapter 3 and kind of how that whole thing like happened and like how it got to that point of him like moving out. But then also in chapter 3, I talk about the relationship with Gabe a little bit more. And by this time in chapter 3, the love bombing had happened. The me wanting to feel loved and all this sort of stuff kept growing. And now it was like, okay, this is like a person that I might want to like be with or whatever. So that's what chapter 3 is. But chapter 3 is also when the true colors of Gabe pop out. So while he was showing me and telling me that he trusted me more than he had ever trusted anyone else, he had, you know, never felt this way around anyone else. You know, all the shit that they always say to the same people over and over and over again. Like, I've never felt this way with anyone else. I've never been able to trust anyone this quickly. I just feel like I can share everything with you. This is just so amazing. I can't imagine, like, how great this is going to be. My ex was such a psycho who wouldn't leave me alone, blah, blah, blah. You know, all the same old stuff that they all say, like, oh, my ex-girlfriend was terrible, and I have a feeling you're not going to be like that, and I just have a whole different feeling for you, and da-da-da, all this shit. So in the process of him doing that, he also shared with me how unsupportive his family was and how they thought that he was worthless and he wasn't, you know, worth anything and he didn't deserve good things and blah, blah. So I remember thinking like, oh my God, that's terrible. Like, you know, my mom was kind of the same way and I can relate to that. And I don't want to let this person down because everyone else has and he feels all these things for me. Oh my God. So FYI, if you're going through that right now with some freaking guy, yeah, no dude, run. So this particular time, it was a birthday party that I was going to, and I was going to be meeting some of his family for the first time at this party, and I had a really good friend of mine who was going to be at the party as well because her husband was friends with Gabe's brother. So I went to this party still feeling kind of like, you know, I'm not sure if I'm ready for this. This seems to be happening like way too fast. Like I'm not sure I'm comfortable with it. And my friend was like, just have some drinks and you'll be fine. So, yeah, don't take that advice. So it was during this party where I was like, kind of talking to people, meeting different people. He wasn't with me. He was, you know, talking to other people, kind of doing his thing. It seemed super normal. Like you go to a party with somebody, you talk to people, your person's kind of walking around doing their own thing. You're okay because you're capable and you're doing your own thing. And from like across the room, it's like, oh my gosh, like I see him looking at me and it feels so nice and this is so great. And I felt like that at that moment, I was starting to like really fall in love with this person. And I was like so happy about it. So I took my friend's advice and started drinking a little bit, nothing too crazy, but like had a couple of drinks, feeling a little bit better. By the end of the night, everything seemed to be fine. Everything seemed to be moving right along. Everything seemed to be like, you know, happy and this is great and maybe this is like a really good thing and wow, it feels nice. So at this birthday party, there was a bonfire and at the top of the hill was this bonfire. So he and I went up to the top of it, and at the top of the hill was my friend and her husband. I knew her husband. I know him a lot better now, but I knew him, but not like super, super well. So we got to the top of the hill. He was standing there with me, and then like my friend left, and I was talking to the husband, and Gabe got pissed or something and started walking around like the bonfire, like really, really mad. So me and this guy were talking, and for the life of me, I cannot remember his name in the book, and hopefully he's not watching this. It's something crazy. Wyatt, that's it. So Wyatt and I are talking, and Gabe is walking around, and I don't know what the hell he's doing, because whatever, it's, you know, a little bit before we were downstairs just fine, not being together, and now, you know, he's kind of doing his thing, so I'm thinking he's just, like, walking around. I don't know, maybe, like, a few minutes later, he came over and grabbed me by the arm, and I didn't know what the heck was happening. He started dragging me kind of down the hill, and I was like, what the heck is going on? And as he's dragging me down the hill, he's yelling at me, and he's like calling me names. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And we get to the bottom, and he's intoxicated and now screaming at me and calling me names. And I'm just like, oh my God. So I could see his dad was there, his dad was watching, and his brother was watching, and I was like, oh my God, like what's happening? Like, I don't understand what I did. Like, what did I do that was so wrong? And he said, screaming at me, telling me I was embarrassing him, and you know, this other stuff. And I'm thinking back in my head, like, I don't understand how I embarrassed this person, like, at all. And I remember when I was with Derek, I would make jokes about Derek, and he would be the butt of my jokes constantly. And I learned from that, like, not to do those things. So with this guy, I'm like, I didn't say anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. I don't understand what's happening. So he started calling me names, really intense names that are all very colorfully laid out in the book. And his brother kind of came over and pulled him away, and I could hear him screaming at his brother. And now everyone's looking at me, and everyone's kind of looking at him. And I kind of went for the door and sat down, and his dad came over, and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know what the hell I just did. I don't know what just happened. And at that point, it was really interesting, because it was like, you know, he's not good for you. He's not good. You should get on the plane and, like, go home and just never look back, because he's going to take you down with him. And I was confused, because I was like, wait, why would like a dad be saying these things about like the kid? And then I thought to myself, I remembered what he told me, that his family didn't want him to have anything good. So I was like, oh, they think I'm not good enough for him. They think that like, and he can do better. I'm not good enough, this and that. And they don't want him happy and this and that. And I didn't obviously take his dad's advice. So word to the wise. If someone's family is saying these things to you, yeah, go. Because they're not just saying it just because, they're saying it for a freaking reason. You want to know that reason? Oh my God. Ugh. So he was really upset. He told me I embarrassed him. He was just so angry with me. And that was the first time where I hadn't been called. When I was married to Derek, maybe I can count on one hand how many times he called me a name. And we were married for a very long time. And before we were married, we were together. So he's not a name caller. He's not going to be like, fucking whore. You know, he's not going to say those things. Because that would be, if he did that stuff, I would have been like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? So I was being called all kinds of stuff. Names I hadn't been called maybe ever. Especially by like a guy that was supposedly, you know, loved me or wanted to be with me and trusted me so much and thought I was like the best thing ever. So that was a really tough thing, because I didn't know what the heck was going on. I didn't know what I did wrong. I had no idea how it got to be like that. And then he came over and he was like, we're leaving. And his family tried to stop him because he was drunk, and he didn't want to be there anymore. He felt I embarrassed him. He felt like, I guess I was flirting with someone else and all this, and literally wasn't doing that. And he wanted to leave. I remember his family was really upset, and they were just like, oh my gosh. And his dad's like, you just need to go home. You need to just let this person go. And it was crazy because at that point, so like that happened. And then it started to get like increasingly worse, but like slowly and over time, where it wasn't like all at once. It was like, you're this and you're that, and it was like a little bit. So then of course after this, which is, I talk more about it in chapter 4, but like, how that looks like after they try to apologize, the things that they say and the things that they do, and how they try to make you feel like comfort, and how they blame it was either the alcohol or it was, whatever. And then it feels good because you feel like, oh, okay, this was like a big misunderstanding. Like, he has a big heart. He really does care about me. Maybe I did something I shouldn't have done. Maybe, whatever. But it's one of those things where it's like you think it's like a normal fight. Like, couples have fights all the time. Like, I'm dating somebody and we got into our first fight and oh God, it was nothing like this, but it was like so different. So people fight, people argue, and then they kind of figure it out. But I learned that fighting doesn't have name calling. It doesn't have abuse in this sort of way. It doesn't have someone pulling you. It doesn't have, you being humiliated in front of a group of people that you literally just met. So it's a whole different thing. You can have a fight and it can be like, you can fight healthy, but when you're fighting and it's leading to name calling and things like that, that's just not healthy. So it got to the point where like, after a while, I wouldn't look at people in the face when they spoke to me, especially men. If a man talked to me, whether it was a waiter, person behind a counter, I would look the other way or I would look down because I was like, I'm not dealing with this. Like, it got to the point where I was like, if I looked at somebody in the eyes when I got in the car, it was like, you're a fucking whore. You're trying to like fuck that guy. Literally not trying to do those things. So it was interesting how that was the beginning of it. That was the first... I thought that was the beginning, but the beginning was really, the love bombing and all the lies and all these other different things that he had said he did in his past relationships, and how he felt like he had to do these abusive things to these women, where he had told me he put someone in the trunk of a car and tried to drown someone. And here I am. And the way he set it up was like, oh, this, that, and the other thing. And he made it sound like he was the victim. And it was so crazy how it was like at that time, it was like, why would I even think that? Like, the second somebody says there was any kind of abuse in any kind of a relationship like that, without, kind of going through all these different things or whatever, then it's just like, I don't know. And it's so funny because people still are like, obviously reading this book, and they just kind of are just like, what the hell? And how do you even answer that? How do you even say to somebody like, when someone's like, what the hell were you thinking? I don't know what I was thinking. That's the big thing. It's like, it goes back to being unhealthy mentally. Like, you can look amazing with your body, and you can be in shape, and you can be in magazines, and you can be on stage, and you can get plastic trophies friggin' until you're blue in the face. But if you're not healthy mentally, then you're going to put yourself at risk, and it's not going to be fun, and it's not going to be easy. So I wasn't healthy at that time. I was a narcissist. I was controlling. I was codependent. I was angry. I had anger. I had an anger problem. I had a massive anger problem where it wasn't just like, ooh, I'm so mad. It was, I was very violent when I got angry. So when I went through recovery, obviously I had to go through anger management and different things like that. And now my anger obviously isn't anything like that. I'm always a work in progress, but it's nothing like it is anymore because I've taken so long to heal. But back then, it was like I was desperate to not be alone, and the way he portrayed it, made sense to my unhealthy brain at the time. Today, obviously, would be completely different. But it was interesting, the stuff that he would say to kind of gain your trust, would make you feel like, he's this amazing guy and everyone just did him wrong for such a long time. And he did these things in these past relationships, but man, it really wasn't his fault. Yeah, it was his fault. So, but that was the first abusive. sort of behavior that started, and that was about a month in. About a month in is when I was dragged down the hill and humiliated at a birthday party, and called names publicly like that. Looking back on it, yeah, I should have gotten on my flight and never looked back, but I didn't. So, tune in tomorrow for chapter 4.